Hello and welcome back. It's been a little bit since I've actually made any videos. Several different complications. Not really wanting to get into it at the moment, but there's something we want to do for a little bit that I haven't actually done. In short, I've wanted to pass on some of the stories that I've actually told from my own Pathfinder group that I play with my family in this case. Well, and frankly, I've been wanting to record, but I just don't have anything at the moment that I would like to record. So I figured, what better times I've been wanting to do this to begin with. So, with that being said, first off, sorry about any audio issues currently. I am still trying to get things figured out still. I had to reinstall my operating system. I was trying to get everything fluctuated and set up properly. But with that, I hope you understand. Hope you enjoy. This story starts off from an idea that I had a good while back that started with my previous group of characters that I ran. The group consists of me, my sister, my mom, and my dad. And in short, it starts off with a very simple story. A long time ago, there was a meteor shower that happened in this land that I've created. And because of this, there came a great evil from that shower. When one of the meteors landed, it landed near a town named Sygax. At the time period, it was a small town and wasn't very known. After a while, after the meteor crashed, some people decided to start investigating the meteor itself, and they found what looked to be that of strange markings on it. Seemed to be from that of a distant land. That or even someplace even farther. Unknowingly, what had landed was a creature not so much of this world. A creature that wanted to conquer it and destroy it, which I called the Elder Mother. The Elder Mother resembles that of the top half being that of a woman, no hair, no ears whatsoever. Very long arms with massive claws coming off. Eyes resembling that of crystalline quartz almost. Similar in shaping of that of like bee eyes. The bottom half resembling that of an octopus. And with this being said, being that the creature was actually that of a eldritch horror, similar to the Cthulhu mythos, whatnot. And in doing so, what came out from it was this creature. The creature itself did not have any lips, nothing but rows and rows of fangs. Had like 3 rows of fangs, being that of similar to shark teeth. Being that those 3 rows, imagine really good biting. It was gargantuan size by the time it grew up. But that's not all. Its flesh looked to have been as if it was burned. Extremely burned, frankly. The skin itself was a dull gray coloration. And thus, these people decided to actually start investigating. After a while, they discovered that it was a lot more than what it seemed. With further investigation, they learned that it actually came from a very far off land, far off in the stars. And thus started the Age of Chaos in my game, being an era where war started breaking out as the Elder Mother tried to seize control of the land. In doing so, 4 Imperial Lords descended down trying to defeat her. Failed. All they were able to do was seal her away temporarily. Now, the legend in my game goes that there's going to be a descendant of the Black Butterfly that's going to be able to release the Elder Mother from her imprisonment. And because of that, there are several interesting things. My last group, not going to get into names in particular because different group I'm talking about the story of right now, frankly, but we had a gunslinger, a arcanist, being the two primary notable ones which had complete control over what happened accidentally, even though that was not all that was there. What happened mostly, reason why those two had more control over it, because the fact is, my mom played a character in the game, but was more around certain aspects that was not exactly controlled by the character she was playing at the time period. Now, I don't remember the exact class exactly, but I believe I remember correctly, it was a alchemist, actually archetype being that of the vivisectionist and Shirtigan, if I remember the name correctly. But I had this idea with the entire thing, Black Butterfly Descendant was actually going to be one of the ones that were going to be able to release the Elder Mother from her imprisonment, and when that happened, the world would go into chaos. But in the end, it never happened, frankly. Now, ironically, my sister, playing the gunslinger here, just still happened to have a lost child that actually fell into play perfectly with the story that I was running to begin with. So in doing so, that's where my sister came into play hot and heavy, while my dad, playing a arcanist, just so happened to be the knowledge junkie of the group and was able to actually discover a lot of hidden secrets. So they went across this land and eventually found out the reason why the Elder Mother was being awakened, who was trying to awaken her, so on and so forth. They had found out that a lich had been working with Thorn Frostbeard, which was the king of this dwarven metropolis. He was obsessed with power and immortality. He was hoping to be able to kill the Elder Mother to be able to actually get her power, frankly, and become immortal. Never succeeded. And for this here is where I'm going to have to break away from story a little bit and go into statistics. Really, we play Pathfinder, as I've just made mention. In short, we do not follow by the mythic rules, being that of everybody's choice. We wanted to stick with that of epic level rule sets. And thus we found this PDF online, which somebody had as an open source thing, where they were actually taking a bunch of the classes and rules from 3.5 and 3rd and converting them over to Pathfinder for ease, frankly, of an epic level rule set, which we all agreed with. So in doing so, I proceeded to continue on adding into that PDF itself for our own homebrew rules. One of which was a Blood Rager. The Blood Rager being able to go into an epic level, one of those very strong things. In this PDF, though, that we found, it just so happened that it gave a couple of options, such as being able to increase strength of your abilities, such as your rage. You can take feats to increase certain aspects of your rage. Certain classes, such as, like, say, the Paladin Ranger, were able to go beyond 4th level spellcasting. Now, this is all nice, fine, and dandy, but the fact is, the problem with this, which really should not have been able to have happened, as the campaign was continued onwards, Thorn was actually a 25th level Blood Rager, Arcane Blood Rager. Now, if anybody knows anything about the Arcane Blood Ragers, they are a handful as it is. They are able to enhance themselves beyond that of what normal Blood Ragers are able to do. In doing so, at least in my opinion, it is one of the most powerful Blood Rager bloodlines, increasing the cast defensively chance, eventually making it to where no matter what, if you have a lower cast level than the actual level, you just so happen to incur an attack of opportunity no matter what. Being able to get a hold of additional effects such as like haste, resist energy, protection from arrows, so on and so forth. Being able to turn into that of mighty dragons, huge animals, or even be able to make yourself the ultimate fighting machine by making your base attack bonus equal to your effective level. And because this is an interesting problem, my group was level 15, 10 levels below, and we're talking about at this moment, Thorn Frostbeard was strong enough to be able to recharge the Staff of Power, meaning he had at least 6 levels spellcasting. And because of that, that is extremely high. The way I put it inside of the homebrewed rules is very simple. When blood raging, very limited amount of time, you can just ignore a certain amount of meta magic level adjustments, and in doing so you can cast them as if you did not actually enhance them. Never got to use that because it was a little bit of an issue. As the entire campaign went on, it went frankly south very quickly, as eventually everything was found out by Thorn. Thorn was trying to find out if just said child of the gunslinger was actually a descendant of the Black Butterfly. Both of them were Asmars to begin with. So with that being said, the answer was yes, and in doing so there were obvious complications there. And in doing so, they eventually fought Thorn. And when they did, they should not have been able to win, as it was a sheer amount of spells going off left and right. Thorn was able to deal on low rolls, being that of at least 300 in one round. And with the aspect of being able to dish that out to multiple creatures at once is phenomenal. But the aspect behind this is eventually he did die. The last moment before he died, because he was actually actively trying to steal the Elder Mother's power. The last thing that was actually seen was that of a pair of incorporeal-like hands gripping in and grasping the soul of Thorn when he died. And almost as if it was being absorbed by the Elder Mother herself. Now, with this all in mind, this brings us back up to speed a little bit. The Elder Mother being a massive big deal, and in doing so creating a new type of creature being the Elderling, named that after her, frankly. It was a creature almost ghoul-like, with very long, thin limbs, similar to that of a ghoul, gray skin, very thin, shaggy hair to begin with, long claws, fangs, slightly webbed hands and feet. Being that of an aberration themselves, they had the natural innate ability to be able to cast spells. But throughout the entire campaign, the one thing that was actually gotten out of this was a allegiance with a lich, and the reason for this was he was being forced against his will. So, with all this being said, he was allowed to put his Placitary, after he got it back from Thorn, into the Vaults of Sygax. Sygax at this point evolving to the point of becoming the magical stronghead of this continent. Being full of magic, it became a metropolis fairly quickly. And in doing so, the allegiance was actually agreed. But that was not the only item put inside of the Vault of Sygax to be protected. There was a very particular gem. This gem not exactly disclosed what all it could do at the time period. I didn't really even know what all it could do until more recently when I actually figured out what I was going to do with it. In short, I named it the Black Star of Chaos. And it does some very simplistic things. It enhances spellcasting abilities in general, granting certain benefits of that of the Eldling templates. If you don't have it, which just makes you stronger, whatnot, faster. But in the end, the most powerful part of it is if you let the Elder Mother get a hold of it. She had the innate ability to be able to cast spells. She was able to cast both that of Arcane and Divine, as if she was a sorcerer and a cleric. Both at 20th level. Effectively with this item, instead of what at least I put it down as for very simplistic means, which I have it open. I'll read off a little bit from it. The Black Star Chaos is a very powerful artifact. Naturally, it increases the worship of the Elder Mother's caster level by 1. So basically, any class in particular that plays with this item that follows the Elder Mother would actually increase the caster level by 1. But you also have to make a will save DC 25 every day or be moved one step closer to evil. Now the problem comes into play is if an actual worshipper got a hold of it, or the Elder Mother in particular. The Elder Mother being a lot more powerful. In particular, if a follower got a hold of it, it would start off with give you the Elderling template, which made you more powerful in all sense, frankly, making you eventually immune to cold, being able to breathe underwater, so on and so forth. You became an Eldritch Horror. But if you already had the template, it counted as your hit die being full higher for the purpose of its effects, being that a lot of things were based off a hit die, including being able to cast spells, as if a cleric of your level, like divided by 3, I believe it was, or 4, one of the two, I don't remember 100%. But with that being said, there was a very interesting thing for this in general, is if the Elder Mother herself actually was able to get a hold of it. And in doing so, that's where the primary effect came into play. As previously, if you were a follower with this item, you would just happen to be able to deliver a touch attack that I labeled as the Corrupted Soul, which deals 1d6 per 2 hit die of negative energy and a d6 of charisma on a failed saving throw. Success means you half the damage and negate the charisma damage. Now, the problem with this ability came into play as if you had your charisma reach 0, because this ability, if I remember correctly, one of the few ways that it'll actually able to happen, it would just happen to make a Elderling underneath the previous Elderling's control. The Elder Mother had this ability being a lot more powerful, being the fact that if she got a hold of this item, it would do several similar things, but they're vastly more powerful. It would increase her cast level effectively by 6. Any spell, if able, would gain the effects of the Empower spell and Apocalyptic spell without any increased spell level or cast time. Along with her Corrupted Soul ability going from 41d6 and 2d6 of charisma damage to 41d8 negative energy damage and 2d8 charisma damage, with the same standard effect as mentioned before. If your charisma hits 0 in any which way because of its ability, it just so happens to make you turn into an Elderling under her control. Which, it may be sounding powerful, 41d8. We're talking about she is a minor god to begin with. And with us using epic level rule sets, we're talking about, I chose her to be an extremely powerful threat, but she is not the most powerful deity out there. We have some different rules for how deities are actually played, for simplicity's sake in certain cases, and for fleshing out better rules of our own honest opinion. One of them being that you have to be, for actual in-game purposes of telling when you would be applicable, unless DM says otherwise, you'd have to be at least 30th level to become a rank 0 god. In particular, she is a rank 2. Being this, she has a bunch of unique abilities, being that she's able to heal faster on her own accord just because she wishes. And in doing so, she's able to move faster. Sorry. But as the rules are for what we have, it is starting at first, you're able to get two salient abilities of your choosing that you can actually be prerequisites for, and then every single level afterwards you get an additional salient ability, which is perfectly fine. But at indicated levels you get an additional one to show that you've actually reached a higher rank of godhood. And in doing so, she was a major threat because she was trying to actually take over the world and wipe it clean. Which brings us to our current point, the beginning of this story, which I'm sorry, the entire backstory for this had to be gotten out of the way. But it starts off in a very small town, which, unknowingly, my sister actually named the name of a band that I did not know about, being Chumbawamba. Still kind of funny, honestly, that that's kind of a name. But it's a gnomish town, as my sister is playing a very interesting character. So is my dad, frankly. In short, they are both adopted by gnomes. Both are adopted by gnomes, and in doing so get some unique abilities. As we have it ruled, if you take the adopted trait, you just so happen to be able to gain the effects of as if you were a gnome. So in doing so, you can take traits, feats, whatnot, as if you were a gnome without any issue. The downside is, though, you count as a gnome for all purposes of effects as well. You may be able to take anything that counts as gnome, but you're able to be affected by anything that counts as gnome and human in this case, because he's a human. My sister is a little bit more complicated. Now, I'm open-minded by a lot of things. It started off with her wanting to play a Savage Skald, a Bard archetype, frankly. In short, for anybody who doesn't know, it is a basically rage song bard, but in doing so, with the way she chose, I eventually found this third-party class being that of the aesthetic entertainer, and it fit more what she was after. So, she decided she was going to play a pony kind. Now, for anybody who does not know, this is basically a My Little Pony inside of a fantasy setting. Now, I'm open-minded, frankly, but this is one of those things where some things go beyond what you normally would expect. So, as things progressed, ultimately she decided she wanted to play this type of character. But Unarmed Strike is a primary feature, because you can't really hold items that well. But she's a ghost pony, if anything, which helped really on for the beginning of the campaign. As her, my father, and my mother's character, which, in short, is a changeling witch. Now, not too inventive when it comes down to that, because that's been done so many times. It's kind of like a stereotype pairing at this point. Being hagkin and being witch is one of those things to be expected. But the characters in particular here, we have Presto, the illusionist, my father's character, a arcane-blooded sorcerer going to illusion that actually worships Shyvana. Which, because of this, I'm also building the gods in particular to help flush them out a little bit for my campaigns. That being a very difficult one because of the Seventh Veil not being known, certain races frankly think they're one thing or another. Raven worships the Lantern King. Now, this being very interesting because of the aspect of her character being a particular archetype, which is lets me be able to choose randomly once per day whenever I want to for any die roll just to have her re-roll. I've not had to use this ever, and it's been like 3, maybe 4 game sessions now. My sister's character, though, is a lot more chaotic. Frankly, let's just save this part for her for a moment. The group goes in and starts choosing to make a name for themselves as joining my mother's circus, Raven Circus, in this case, as her uncle proceeds to drive around and they proceed to perform. Presto proceeds to enhance his illusions. Raven goes on to storytelling. Now, there's one blatant thing to begin with. My sister, playing a pony kind, decides to go into tap dancing as one of the primary performances, but decides to without really any ranks in acrobatics. and trying to do things that's acrobatic. Ultimately, the group makes a good bit of money. But in the middle of the performance, one particular member, Noble Momo, being Raven's familiar. And for this being said, starts mentioning this because it starts noticing that of strange occurrences. Still being that of animal descent in some way. Starts noticing bits of strange occurrences. Because Noble Momo's so far had one of the highest perceptions in the entire game. In short, I took something away, frankly, from 5th edition in 5th edition for a lot of different games being passive perceptions. And I like the idea of it. It's actually helped make things a lot easier. Noble Momo notices something very strange about the tent which they're performing in. As townfolk proceed to ride in, ride out, they watch, and eventually the circus ends for the time. After Noble Momo starts freaking out about what looks to be that of a shadow-like creature, very small in size, starts to freak out about it. In doing so, Raven, deciding to go along, and decides to investigate exactly what it is from, and eventually finds out that it seems to be a very young wraith. Now, I found this particular wraith on Paizo, the smaller, weaker version of the wraith in particular. So eventually Raven comes back and tells the group about what's going on. Meanwhile, my sister's character decides to book it after Raven's already left to investigate. And in doing so, the rest of them decide to go off and investigate. They eventually find what looks to be this little wraith-like creature. In doing so, it starts acting up and starts attacking. Eventually, it is defeated after my sister does so much fucking damage. For some reason, my sister, having an unarmed strike at level 1, would be doing the same amount of damage, roughly, as what she's doing at level 3. The group started off level 3, and in doing so, not too many spell options. Raven, being a witch, decides to start glaring a lot. And in doing so, glaring using the Evil Eye Hex. Now, I haven't gotten all the names down completely yet. I'm going with small bits that I do remember. The group has not been ran long enough for me to remember all the characters' names, so do forgive. So, with this all being said, she does so much damage. And thus, murders it, frankly. As a ghost pony, you get the unique ability that you can still deal half damage even if you do not have magical weapons against incorporeal creatures. Which is great, frankly. Made things a lot easier, made this viable, honestly. The group got screwed over, frankly, being the fact that it was pretty even CR, but it was still an incorporeal creature level 3. And in doing so, they decided to go alert authorities. Shortly thereafterwards, the caravan gets invited into the palace because of the performance they've done. And it's also where they're getting paid anyways. So they proceed to get their gold and leave. My group decides that they're going to leave for the time being and goes down south a little bit. Leaving town is something they decided to do spontaneously, being the fact that they wanted to become more adventurous, to be able to make a name for themselves more than just being that of the wandering caravan which they've been traveling with. They decided to spontaneously do it without telling anybody that they were leaving. So, my sister, playing this psychotic pony kind, decides to get a card. Now, as my sister has a couple unique quirks for this character in particular. Start off with, she's kind of southern, frankly, in accent, but that just being a way of accentuating what the character's going to be doing. She, first off, is afraid of any canine-like creature, so she wanted to work on how this would actually work. And there's not really a rule that I will find for fear of creatures. All I was able to find was that of the panic condition, so on and so forth. In the end, we decided that it was going to be a simple thing of the hit die of the creature for the actual CR, plus 10, whatnot, and eventually she could actually get over it. As certain things happen, she would be able to make additional saves with bonuses. So, she's currently at a +1 bonus at the moment for her saves, even though she's not gone over her fear. There's still some very interesting things about this. It's caused her to run away so many times. But, as they decide to leave, she decides she's going to go ahead and actually get a hold of a cart. She does not believe that horses should be enslaved. And in doing so, she wants to fight against that and start a revolution. So, she goes about going to the stables, trying to find a cart, which was not hard to do, which they eventually just left. With options of taking negatives to be able to do non-lethal damage, she snuck into the stables, trying to get everything set up for the cart. And in doing so, tries to sneak behind the guards and leave, proceeding to get in a lot of trouble, frankly. She got into a lot of trouble. They thought she was a horse to begin with, a very strange horse. Somehow put a saddle on herself, being a bard to begin with, and even now being an aesthetic entertainer, which is a bard monk hybrid. It'd be quite easy to explain how. With that being said, the stable master decides to take off the bridle and harness from my sister's character, and in doing so, turns his back. When she sees that his back is turned, she decides to rear up on her back hoofs and slam into him as hard as possible, trying to knock him out. Being on average, I have to make mention, on average, a single commoner at this point would have a tier 1 commoner. Level 1, 1/2, whatever the fuck you want to call it, would have maybe 10, 14 hit points at best. And in doing so, we were able to determine several different things. One, my sister's character is psychotic and has a very major problem, bloodlust. Secondly, that she hits very fucking hard with negatives to allow her to be able to attack, dealing non-lethal damage. She almost killed him in one punch. And the bad part is she failed the first one. As the first hoof hit, he was still standing, little groggy, as the irritated look of this pony-kind creature starts to build. You could see, like, in her eyes at that moment, there was a bit of fury as he dared to still be standing after getting hit in the head. So there was the rear back of all her might as she slammed both hoofs into his head, cracking his skull slightly open, as he proceeded to land on the ground with a loud thud, slightly bleeding out as there was a bit of blood left on my sister's character. And thus they decide to meet back up near the inn they were staying in. So, at least an inn to begin with they were staying at for food purposes, whatnot. So, with that they decided to leave fairly quickly after the cart was gotten. They left it there because the sheer fact alone they were starting to be hunted down because of her. So they left, got on the road, and decided to leave off south. After a while, a bit of discovery happened. On the traveling road in the middle of the night, they were taking watches. A lone creature decided to ride down that road that night. Something that changed the entire course of the story, frankly. And thus, we're going to end it here for the time being, as it's a lot of information to process. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. I do wish to continue doing more of this, and I do want opinions on how I could improve upon this. My storytelling outside a game is a lot worse than inside, frankly. The reason why for this is because the interaction between people in particular, you tell part of the story of what's going on, they take over kind of thing, and doing so you get time to plan on for the next thing. This is just one person just telling the story straight out. But anyways, I do hope this has been entertaining. I do hope people have enjoyed this little story, and I do hope that you'll be here to watch the next video. Well, listen even, frankly. Anything at this point. But I do hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, listening, what do you want to say. And hope to continue to entertain, frankly. Hope you'll record more often. So yeah, bye.